Mama, if you're listening, we need you to come home. We miss you.
Nancy Guthrie's son-in-law, once trusted as family, now faces the full weight of justice. What began as a shocking disappearance turned into a federal investigation uncovering lies, incriminating phone calls, and damning text messages. Evidence recovered near her home and digital forensic analysis exposed a chilling plan, while financial records revealed greed and desperation driving the crime. From intense FBI interrogations to courtroom collapse, each revelation built toward a permanent sentence. So, what exactly happened, and how did investigators unravel the truth behind Nancy Guthrie's son-in-law? This is the story. A disappearance that shattered trust. What should have been an ordinary, quiet evening quickly descended into a nightmare that would shock a family and stun investigators. Nancy Guthrie, an elderly woman known for her warmth, kindness, and deep devotion to her family, simply vanished from her home. There were no immediate signs of struggle, no screaming or disturbance reported by neighbors. Just a sudden and inexplicable absence that left her loved ones in disbelief. Initially, authorities approached the case like any other missing person report, hoping it was a temporary disappearance that could be explained by confusion, a late errand, or a miscommunication. But as detectives pieced together the earliest clues, the picture they were forming was far darker than anyone could have imagined. Evidence began to suggest that Nancy had not been taken by a stranger lurking in the shadows. Instead, all signs pointed to someone she knew, someone she trusted implicitly, someone from within her closest circle. The very people she welcomed into her home, shared her meals with, and confided in, became the center of suspicion. This revelation turned a simple search for a missing grandmother into a high-stakes federal investigation, one that drew in the FBI, forensic experts, and investigators determined to uncover the truth. Every detail, from digital footprints and financial records to phone calls and text messages, was scrutinized for the faintest sign of deception. The story quickly evolved from a heart-wrenching disappearance into a tale of betrayal so deep it shook the foundations of a family. What should have been safety and comfort in the company of loved ones became fear, mistrust, and suspicion. Investigators faced the delicate task of uncovering evidence without alerting a suspect who had every opportunity to conceal the truth. As the investigation progressed, the pieces began to fit together, revealing not just a crime of opportunity, but a calculated act fueled by desperation and greed. Ultimately, the events of that night set the stage for a courtroom drama that would capture the attention of the nation. A man who had once been part of the family now faced a legal battle that would strip him of his freedom forever. The case of Nancy Guthrie serves as a haunting reminder of how quickly trust can be shattered, how ordinary moments can turn deadly, and how meticulous investigation can bring even the most hidden crimes into the light, leading to justice. Nancy's disappearance shocked many. However, the man who should have protected her was reported to have played a role in the crime. But what methods exposed him? And did his own reactions reveal his guilt? Let's uncover the shocking details. The interrogation that broke the illusion. At 5:30 in the morning, Nancy Guthrie's son-in-law was led into a cold, windowless FBI interrogation room, his eyes still heavy with sleep, but his posture radiating confidence. He wore the casual clothes he had been caught in just an hour before when federal agents had stormed his home, yet he carried himself as if nothing could touch him. Without hesitation, he waved off the offer of legal counsel as if he had already mapped out every possible outcome and believed he could outsmart the two seasoned investigators sitting across the table. For the first hour, his performance was impeccable. He recited a carefully rehearsed timeline of Nancy's final evening, describing in vivid detail the dinner they had shared, the laughter that filled the room, and the small gestures that made her so beloved. Every morsel she ate, every story she told about her late husband, every laugh and sigh was recounted with precision. as though he were a storyteller rehearsing a scene for an audience that could never doubt him. He leaned forward, hands flat on the table, meeting the agent's gaze with an air of sincerity that was almost convincing. But the facade, as carefully constructed as it was, could not withstand the evidence waiting in the shadows. When the lead agent signaled for a laptop to be brought forward, the air in the room shifted. A phone call recorded at 2:47 a.m. played through the speakers, and the calm veneer shattered in an instant. The son-in-law's own voice filled the room, speaking with knowledge and familiarity about the operation, details that only the person orchestrating the events could know. In that moment, the polished timeline crumbled, replaced by visible fear and confusion. Hands trembled, posture slumped, and the confident mask slipped away entirely. The room, once a stage for his self-assured performance, became a trap. Every word of denial, every attempt to redirect the conversation was met with concrete proof, meticulously documented and undeniable. The first domino had fallen, setting in motion a cascade of revelations that would strip away pretense and expose the truth in painstaking detail. What began as a rehearsed defense now became a desperate struggle against a mounting tide of evidence, marking the start of a meticulously chronicled unraveling that would leave no room for escape or deception. Investigators presented evidence beyond any doubt that Nancy's son-in-law orchestrated her disappearance. But could he still defend himself despite the overwhelming proof? And would his defense be strong enough to vindicate him? Now, let's delve into the blame-shifting and psychological collapse that unfolded during the interrogation. The web of lies unravels. For hours, Nancy Guthrie's son-in-law clung to a fragile web of lies, desperately trying to shift the blame onto Marcus, his supposed accomplice. Each story he spun seemed carefully crafted, rehearsed, and meant to convince investigators that he was only a bystander in the horrific events that had unfolded. At first, his confidence made it easy to believe that he might outsmart the agents, that he could control the narrative and walk away unscathed. But the evidence was methodical, unyielding, and precise, waiting silently for its moment to strike. Every recorded phone call, each text message, and the trail of financial transactions worked against him. They told a story he could not erase or distort. Phone records revealed conversations with Marcus that detailed logistics, timing, and methods. Text messages illustrated planning so meticulous it left no room for accidental involvement. Even his financial dealings, from large unexplained cash withdrawals to payments directly tied to Marcus, painted a clear picture of coordination. Every witness statement, every piece of tangible proof, began to dismantle the carefully built facade he had carried into the stark, windowless interrogation room. As the hours ticked by, his defenses, once polished and precise, began to crack. Subtle hesitations turned into stammered denials. Gestures once controlled became erratic, and the calm veneer of innocence faded. The agents watched a man unravel layer by layer under the relentless weight of his own deception. Each piece of evidence was like a scalpel, cutting through his rehearsed story, exposing inconsistencies and eroding the lies he had clung to so desperately. But what made the unmasking even more chilling was what it revealed about his mindset. Beneath the rehearsed words and false concern lay a striking absence of empathy. Nancy Guthrie, the elderly woman whose trust he had so thoroughly betrayed, was consistently absent from his thoughts. His focus remained on self-preservation, fear of consequences, and the crumbling illusion of control. The warmth, laughter, and vulnerability of the woman he targeted were eclipsed entirely by his own desperation. By the time the interrogation ended, the son-in-law was unrecognizable from the man who had walked into that room hours earlier. Gone was the confident, composed figure. In his place sat a broken man, exposed, cornered, and overwhelmed. Every lie, every deflection, every attempt to manipulate had been dismantled. In that windowless room, under the unblinking scrutiny of federal investigators, the truth emerged in stark, undeniable clarity, revealing not just the crime, but the chilling character of the man who orchestrated it. Nancy's son-in-law attempted to shift blame onto his accomplice, yet the evidence against him was overwhelmingly convincing. But what verdict awaits a man whose actions betrayed trust so profoundly? Could he be pardoned, or will he pay the full price for his deeds? Now, let's dive into the verdict that ended a life of deception. Justice delivered. After months of investigations, interrogations, and courtroom drama, the final moment arrived. Nancy Guthrie's son-in-law, the man who had once walked freely among family and friends, now faced the ultimate consequences of his actions. The courtroom, heavy with tension, fell silent as the judge read aloud the verdict. He was sentenced to spend the rest of his life behind bars, a punishment that reflected not only the premeditated nature of the crime, but the deep betrayal of trust that had shaken an entire family and community. Every piece of evidence, painstakingly gathered over weeks and months, had built a case too compelling to ignore. Phone calls, text messages, financial records, witness statements, and digital footprints painted an unflinching portrait of a man who had planned and executed a crime against someone he was supposed to love and protect. Yet beyond the evidence, beyond the chilling facts, the court also weighed the human cost, the emotional trauma, the fear, and the shattered sense of security inflicted on Nancy Guthrie and her loved ones. For Nancy's family, the sentencing marked a long-awaited moment of justice. Relief, mingled with sorrow, washed over the room as they listened to the decision. Closure had arrived, yet the wounds of betrayal could not be erased overnight. Memories of laughter, trust, and familial warmth now stood in stark contrast to the cold facts of the crime. Each family member would carry the echoes of that night and the shadow of what had been lost for years to come. For the son-in-law, the reality could not have been starker. The freedom he had once taken for granted, the life he believed he could manipulate and control, was gone forever. No clever story, no attempt to shift blame, no rehearsed lie could undo the truth meticulously uncovered by investigators. The sentence was a reminder that deception, no matter how carefully planned or convincingly performed, cannot outlast accountability. The courtroom drama closed not just a legal chapter, but a moral one. It affirmed that calculated crimes, when laid bare by evidence and justice, leave no place to hide. The sentence delivered a clear message. Trust, once broken in the most personal and deliberate way, demands accountability and justice, though sometimes delayed, will eventually prevail. Nancy's son-in-law was sentenced to spend the rest of his life behind bars. But what evidence did the judge consider to deliver such a devastating verdict? Could the FBI investigation have uncovered even more? And just how serious were the findings that sealed his fate? Let's find out. Digital evidence that spoke louder than words. Every piece of technology Nancy Guthrie's son-in-law touched became a silent witness to his actions. Phone records, text messages, and even the files on his laptop painted a terrifyingly clear picture of meticulous planning. Messages weren't casual notes. They outlined weaknesses in home security, pinpointed daily routines, and detailed the step-by-step logistics of a ransom plan. Every exchange revealed a mind not only plotting but calculating every potential obstacle, leaving nothing to chance. When investigators recovered the digital evidence, they discovered that even his attempts to cover his tracks were no match for federal forensic tools. Files he thought deleted were recovered, erased browser histories resurrected, and hidden searches unearthed. Every desperate move to hide his intentions became another layer of proof against him. Each new document, each restored search history, struck like a hammer against his rehearsed story of innocence. No claim of ignorance, no pivot to a fabricated explanation could withstand the clarity of these digital breadcrumbs. The laptop searches alone told a story as chilling as the texts themselves. There were detailed queries about how to kidnap someone without leaving evidence, how to use anonymous payment methods, and how long someone could survive without essential medications. There were studies of legal consequences, comparisons between different criminal charges, and methods for disposing of evidence. These weren't vague, idle curiosities. They were operational instructions, a blueprint for committing the crime and avoiding capture. Even the most casual observer could see the terrifying precision. Each digital record is tied directly to Nancy's routine, her home, and her vulnerabilities. Every text, every search, every timestamp became a piece of the puzzle that left no room for doubt. What had started as a missing person investigation had transformed into a detailed portrait of premeditation. The crime was no longer hypothetical, no longer a matter of maybe or could be. It was deliberate, methodical, and horrifyingly undeniable. By the time the prosecution assembled the evidence into a cohesive timeline, the case had grown beyond suspicion. The combination of recorded calls, text messages, and laptop searches formed a single, unbroken narrative. A man had planned, coordinated, and attempted to execute a crime against someone he was supposed to protect. Each attempt to deny, each alibi offered, fell away under the weight of technology and truth. There was no room for ambiguity. The meticulous planning and digital trail left him exposed, and every lie he told was already recorded, ready to be used against him. Beyond the digital evidence that implicated Nancy's son-in-law, was there physical proof the FBI uncovered? And how compelling was this evidence in advancing the investigation? Now, let's explore the silent witness. The clue left outside the house. While digital evidence had already painted a chilling picture of planning and intent, investigators knew that tangible, physical proof could turn suspicion into undeniable fact. Their search led them beyond phone records, text messages, and laptop traces to something far more concrete: a single black glove. Found roughly 1.5 miles from Nancy Guthrie's home, the glove immediately caught the attention of detectives. Its color, shape, and apparent design matched the glove seen in the haunting doorbell camera footage from the night of her disappearance. Although authorities could not immediately confirm ownership, the discovery was anything but insignificant. Here was an object that linked the suspect to movements outside the home, suggesting deliberate planning, calculated execution, and an attempt to dispose of evidence afterward. Unlike digital footprints that could sometimes be misinterpreted, the glove represented a real-world connection, a silent witness to the crime, hinting at premeditation in the coldest of terms. Detectives carefully collected, bagged, and preserved the item, recognizing its potential to complement the meticulously documented digital trail. Every recorded call, every text message, and every laptop search had already begun to reveal the scale and precision of the crime. Yet physical evidence such as this glove anchored the case in reality. It was one thing to uncover words and clicks on a screen. It was another to hold an object that had potentially been worn during the perpetration of the act. Investigators analyzed the surroundings where the glove was discovered, a small shrub beside a quiet road, considering how it might have been discarded in haste or deliberately left to mislead authorities. The distance from Nancy's home, approximately 1.5 miles, suggested that the suspect had carefully planned movement routes, avoiding attention while attempting to erase traces of involvement. In the broader investigation, the glove became more than just a piece of clothing. It symbolized the transition from circumstantial evidence to undeniable proof. Coupled with digital data, forensic analysis, and witness accounts, it formed a critical link in the chain that ultimately exposed the suspect's methodical, calculated actions. Every item, every trace, every clue began to converge, tightening the circle around Nancy Guthrie's abductor. The physical and digital evidence together left little room for doubt, providing prosecutors with the tangible confirmation needed to demonstrate the extent of planning, execution, and cold intent. Investigators discovered a glove near the scene of the abduction, complementing the digital evidence they had collected. But what could have driven the crime in the first place? Now, let's unravel how financial ruin fueled a shocking betrayal. The greed that fueled betrayal. The deeper investigators dug into Nancy Guthrie's son-in-law's finances, the clearer the picture of desperation became. What initially looked like ordinary financial struggles soon revealed itself as a web of mounting debt, unchecked spending, and looming foreclosure that threatened to consume him entirely. Bank accounts were overdrawn, credit cards maxed, and payments months behind, creating pressure that seemed unbearable. Then came the unexplained cash withdrawals, tens of thousands of dollars vanishing in the weeks leading up to Nancy's disappearance, each one a puzzle piece pointing toward an unseen plan. At the center of it all was Nancy's inheritance, a potential lifeline worth millions that could erase his mounting debts, restore his lifestyle, and silence creditors once and for all. But there was a catch. Nancy had already scheduled an updated will, one that would reduce the portion her daughter, his wife, would inherit. For him, the ticking clock was not just a measure of time, it was a shrinking opportunity to secure financial salvation. Every day that passed without action only tightened the grip of reality, turning fear into obsession. The investigation revealed that this was not a solo act of greed. Coordination with an accomplice had been planned and executed. Payments made to Marcus, the co-conspirator, confirmed premeditation and deliberate collaboration, showing that the crime was carefully orchestrated rather than impulsive. Texts, phone calls, and other communications provided an unbroken chain of evidence that tied financial motive directly to criminal action. Desperation and greed, once hidden behind a polished facade of family loyalty and calm composure, became undeniably visible. The motive was no longer abstract. It was specific, measurable, and directly linked to the son-in-law's actions. It transformed mere suspicion into actionable intent. For investigators and prosecutors, the financial trail became the backbone of the case, connecting the dots between opportunity, planning, and execution. In court, it would crystallize the reason behind his betrayal, explaining not only what he did, but why he was willing to shatter trust, exploit family bonds, and commit an unthinkable crime to secure his own survival. This evidence didn't just point to motive. It painted a portrait of a man whose choices were driven by financial desperation, ambition, setting the stage for the conviction that would ultimately end his freedom forever. What do you think about the verdict passed on Nancy's son-in-law? Could the sentence have been lighter or perhaps even harsher? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.